So despite how I feel about Doom 3 as both a game and a Doom game, the game was still critically acclaimed by many critics and fans. The game received well over 3.5 million copies sold, meaning that it became ID Software's most successful game to date. However, for some reason, the series decided to go on a second hiatus, with a new game not being officially announced until May 7th, 2008, with the title of the game just being called Doom 4. But nothing else was really heard about it until March 2nd of 2012, with leaks appearing around the internet showcasing how the game was going to turn out. And well, let's just say that the game was looking a lot like a Call of Duty clone. Like seriously, what? Why was this ever conceived? They were trying to turn Doom into just another generic first-person shooter, and a pretty bad time too, since this was when people started to get burnt out by the FPS formula. And the genre itself was already running dry, especially with the yearly releases of franchises such as Call of Duty milking the concept. Doom 4 would have had no place in the gaming industry and would have been a colossal failure. Good thing the folks at ID Software knew this, and after following tons of development hell and a sudden realization that the project just wasn't going to work out, they canceled the game entirely and started from scratch with a new reboot to the franchise that would turn it back to where it was once known for, bringing back the core gameplay of the originals with a new, fresh, and exciting take on the formula that has since been built upon across the years. And this fabled game was released on May 13th, 2016. Allow me to introduce you guys to ID Software's brand new game known as Doom 2016. Wait, is this the right game? Crap, I thought there was much more to this than just being quite literally remade from the ground up. I mean, this just looks very jarring. This is the game that conjured up after 12 years of nothing? Like, whoa, what was that? Well, anyway, is this really what the, okay, what is happening here? Like, did you guys just see that, or is that just me? Am I about to witness something incredible here? Or... Now this is Doom 2016. Produced by ID Software and published by Bethesda, Doom 2016 marks the franchise's grand return since Doom 3, and it serves as a true reimagining of the 1993 original Doom. But does it succeed in this manner? What does it add or change to the overall gameplay loop? And has it breathed new life to a now oversaturated and lifeless genre of games? That is what I will be exploring today and more as we take another trip to these demon-infested domains. Now, I do want to note that I will unfortunately not be talking about the multiplayer in this video, as no one is really playing it in 2022, making it impossible for me to make a verdict on it. I hope this isn't an issue to any of you. Well, with that out the way, let us dissect and review. Well, I'll just let this clip speak for itself.
Gotten out of hand now, yes. But it was worth the risk, I assure you.
So with a new take on the series, this gives devs at ID Software another chance to really flesh out the story and plot that the first game had, and boy, did they actually put a lot of story content in this game. Well, kinda, and I'll get to what I mean about that in a little bit, but for now, here's a synopsis of the plot. Our journey begins on Mars in a facility that is owned and funded by the UAC. This is where our protagonist, now known as the Doom Slayer, wakes up from a sarcophagus due to the actions of Samuel Hayden, a UAC scientist who woke up the Doomslayer in an attempt to have him stop the ongoing demon invasion on this facility. After the Doomslayer recovers his Praetor suit, he fights his way through the facility to stop the antagonist known as Olivia Pierce from opening the portal to Hell. And that is basically the whole premise of the game. Again, similar to the first Doom game, but there is actually a lot, and I mean a lot more going on here than you may think. Now let's talk about our characters. Samuel Hayden serves as an exposition dump in the story, giving us the crucial information we need to progress through the story. He's an alright character, but this is really the only purpose he serves here. He has his own motives as well, and ends up actually set up near the end for a potential villain of the next game, but other than that, there really isn't much going on with him, at least at first glance. We also have Vega, who's an AI character that pretty much acts as our guide throughout the game in both gameplay and story. Again, nothing really special with him, but he's a Chad. Now our main antagonist, Olivia Pierce, is rarely in the story after the first one-third of the game. After she opens up that portal, she pretty much is absent except for the very end when she turns into the Spider Mastermind. She does have a lot of backstory as with the other characters, which leads me on to my next verdict, which is about the presentation of the story. Let's think back to the original Doom games, which we all know had very little plot and context given to the player. In my Doom 1 video, I remarked that this is actually fine because it shows that you do not need an overarching story and narrative to have an engaging plot. Well, this game takes that point and makes it even better. And that is because the Doomslayer just doesn't give a crap about what's happening here. You'll have moments where Doomslayer just completely ignores Samuel Hayden and whatever is happening around him, and it feels awesome. Like in this part, he forcefully throws the monitor to the side while Samuel is talking to him, basically meaning, hey, I don't care about what you're saying, shut up. There is also one level where your goal is to destroy these 3 Argent energy containers, and despite Samuel pleading to Doomslayer to not completely destroy them, he does it anyway.
If stopping our energy production is what you want, then you need only to destroy this last filter, and Argent energy will no longer exist in this solar system. We will be back at square one. You have no idea what you have just done.
This drives the notion that the story just doesn't need to be important here. If not even the main character really gives a damn on what's going on, then neither should the player. This is brilliant because it recaptures what really mattered when it came to Doom. You weren't in it for what was actually happening in the plot. No, all you wanted to do was slay those wretched hordes of demons and send them back from where they came from. And this game really drives that mindset home, especially through the protagonists. Although, the game still does have a lot of plot to cover, as you can find these codex entries scattered around the levels that give more insight on the characters, demons, the past, the areas you travel, etc. It is nice that you have the option to look deeper if you really were interested in it, so I am glad the option is there. Although I could care less, there is some stuff that is interesting here. Overall, the story just serves as a reason why you're doing the things you do, so it's fine throughout. So how does Doom 2016 not only return to the thrilling combat of the previous games, but also innovate in ways we haven't seen before? Well, for starters, the gameplay loop in this game is pretty familiar to what we have seen before, with demons to rip and tear through, secrets to find, and guns to collect as you build up your arsenal of weapons to use in combat. A lot of things have been refined to fit in the more modern era of the FPS genre, but not too much to the point where it feels like it's trying to be like the next Call of Duty or Battlefield. So let's talk about the overall combat first, starting with the weapons. In terms of your arsenal, most of the guns from the previous titles have made a return here. You have the pistol, the shotgun, the super shotgun, the chain gun, the plasma rifle, the rocket launcher, the BFG 9000, and the chainsaw as your returning weapons, as well as some new ones like the heavy assault rifle and the Gauss cannon. Now, the weapons on their own are all fairly solid, but as per usual, the super shotgun once again kinda rose out on all fronts. Or at least that's what I would say if it weren't for a brand new mechanic that allows you to put weapon mods on your gun. These mods serve as attachments that give your gun some useful ability, and each gun has 2 mods except for the super shotgun. For example, you can get the stun mod for the plasma rifle that allows you to shoot a ball of energy that stuns enemies on impact, as well as turning your chain gun into a mobile turret allowing for double the damage but on a cooldown. These mods are great and really give you an incentive to use every gun you have and find your own playstyle. The way to approach a combat situation is all up to you in this game thanks to this system. Hell, you can even upgrade each mod using weapon points, which you can earn by either doing well in combat or by doing these combat challenges that differ from each level. The combat challenges do get pretty tedious to do though, so I end up just completely ignoring them during the second half of the game. After fully upgrading a weapon mod, you can even go for its mastery upgrade that requires you to do another challenge relating to that weapon mod, adding another layer to the gunplay. With all this in mind, you are totally free to just play the game normally and just use and abuse the super shotgun and still do fine. But I do highly encourage mixing and matching all types of weapons and weapon mods, as I think it's the real meat of the gunplay. It encourages you to think hard and fast on what you want to switch to next, and it is extremely satisfying. But not as satisfying as performing the brand new glory kills on enemies. You see, when you get an enemy low enough, they will start to stagger and flash orange. This allows you to perform a devastating and rather brutal melee finisher to absolutely eradicate them. Doing this will usually give you health and sometimes ammo, so it's best to use this when you get the chance. I absolutely love pulling these off though. Not only are you rewarded quite nicely for it, but you also get to view a sick killing animation as a bonus. These animations can get pretty grotesque and really drives how much of an unstoppable force you are in this game. In general, the game is just oozing with aggressive like energy and really makes you feel indestructible. This also translates nicely onto the gameplay itself, which highly incentivizes you to be aggressive instead of just meekly sitting there and holding down your right trigger. You'll find yourself jumping around, constantly moving from enemy to enemy as you switch between your different weapons to maul those demons down. It is very exhilarating, and the developers knew this is how they wanted to approach this game, so the energy is applied straight back with how over the top everything feels. They did such an amazing job capturing that feel the older titles would give and translating it to a new generation. Demon slaying has never felt so good in a Doom game, but what else is there to help out in the demon hunting? Well, let's talk about the chainsaw, which originally was its own separate weapon in the previous games that pretty much has acted like a better melee option, but in this game it has been completely reworked. It is not only binded to a separate button, but also has its own fuel system with each use taking up a certain amount of fuel depending on how big the enemy is. Doing this will have tons and tons of ammo explode out of your target, allowing for an easy replenishment of resources when needed. This is such a good way to make the chainsaw very viable, and it gives you the option of either using it on a smaller demon just for the ammo, or reserving your fuel for a tougher and bigger enemy to quickly deal with them. It kind of feels like the soul cube from Doom 3, but instead of killing demons to fuel it, you just find a fuel on the ground like you would anything else in the game. You also have, of course, the BFG 9000, which you get about halfway through the game. This, like the chainsaw, not only has its own button, but also works differently. Well, it actually feels like an evolved version of the BFG from Doom 3, where it still has these tendrils that stick out and latch onto any demon on the field. But now this is actually a primary attack method of the BFG, meaning you're going to want to keep it in the air for as long as possible to get the most mileage out of it. As always, the BFG is awesome, and I really do like the new approach it takes in this game. Next, we have the equipment, which basically acts like a lethal throwable you typically see in other FPS games. Firstly, we have the hand grenade, which makes a return from Doom 3. I don't think I need to explain how a grenade works, but it is decent at the start of the game. Next, we have a hologram, which spawns a holographic version of you to distract the enemies, making them easier targets. This one is also fairly solid, but I happen to use it the least in this game, and that is because of the third equipment, which is the siphon grenade. This grenade, when thrown, will steal health from any enemy in its radius. This one I use the most, as it is pretty useful to quickly gain health if it is needed. Let's also not forget about the power-ups. Yes, the power-ups do make a return in this game, with some new ones to boot. We have Berserk, which is much better in this game compared to older entries, as every melee attack serves as a glory kill, instantly killing everything in sight. It is very dopamine-inducing to just absolutely rip and tear through the organic tissue of these creatures. Invulnerability also makes a return too, but, nothing really special about it, it just kinda exists. New power-ups consist of quad damage, which, well, quadruples your damage output, as well as haste, which gives you a burst of speed in both movement and allows quicker shooting. Like in the original Doom, the power-ups more or less serve to add more to the combat and help with turning the tide of a losing battle. I'm very glad to see them come back. With all this in place, you have yourself a combat system that not only stays true to the philosophies that the original Doom game stuck with, but also adds some refreshing aspects that keep it somewhat familiar to the modern games. Now add in the absolutely aggressive and energetic style and polish, and you have an amazing combat system and overall feel that is very much welcome. But what is the combat system without any enemies to fight? A lot of the enemies from previous games have made a return here along with some new ones, but this time their designs are much more in line with their designs from Doom 1 and 2. Most of these designs are honestly near perfect. It actually seems like what they would have originally looked like if Doom 1 came out around this time. Of course there are some differences, but overall all the demons have translated quite nicely in a proper 3D space. Now the demons in this game pretty much act the same as they usually did, but with some added attacks and movement options to be more in line with the fast-paced gameplay the game offers. I think they all serve as decent enemies that can catch you off guard if you aren't paying attention. The only demons that don't make a return here are the Archvile, thankfully, the Chain Gunner, the Arachnotron, and the Pain Elemental, but thankfully you won't be missing them too much in this game. We also have some new enemies like the Summoner who teleports around and shoots projectiles at you. They can be pretty annoying to kill at first, but once you get better equipment and mods, they aren't too bad. You also have these shield guys as well, that, well, have a shield. There are other types, but these are the main ones I can think of. In terms of their spawns and how they are implemented, they usually are just already there when you enter a room, like in previous titles, already spawning out of thin air. Again, this is kind of lame. I miss when they would come from behind walls that would open up. It really made you more aware of your actions as you entered each room in previous games. Anyway, the enemies serve as a pretty decent challenge throughout the game and are the driving force that keeps you constantly on the move and making the proper decisions necessary to absolutely wreak havoc on them. But where are the enemies going to be if there is no level level to be on. This is where the levels come in. Now, like Doom 2, these levels are actually pretty big. In fact, these are probably the biggest levels we've seen yet, with each level taking around 30 minutes to an hour to complete on your first playthrough. Now, as for the level design itself, for the most part it's actually pretty solid, with a decent variety of combat and exploration sections throughout your journey. As expected, secrets make a return in this game, with the main difference being the stuff you can get from the secrets. These secrets can get you all sorts of neat stuff, like Praetor tokens, which allows you to upgrade things like mobility, secret finding, etc. Argent energy cells, which allow you to upgrade one of the three stats, which is either your health, armor, or ammo capacity. Like in Doom 1, you can also find some weapons earlier than intended, like the Gauss Cannon in the Argent Tower level. You can also find rune stones, which teleports you to a separate area to complete a small minigame challenge, which can come down to either killing a certain amount of demons in time with explosive barrels only, or racing against time to reach the far end of the area. After completing a runestone, you'll be given a permanent perk that you can equip, ranging from more ammo drops to getting a burst of speed after performing a glory kill, etc. And these too can also be upgraded by doing a certain challenge relating to it. All of these types of secrets only add to the gameplay and combat experience and customization. It only encourages you to find a certain playstyle. Like for example, if you want to just go for health first, you can do that, or you can upgrade them all at once. But that isn't all in terms of secrets, as you can also find these toy figures of different versions of the Doomslayer you can find, as well as these levers that can take you to a section of a classic map. Yeah, you can actually play some selected classic levels once you unlock them in the main menu. These are pretty neat, and I am glad they went the extra mile to include them, but it is pretty jarring when you enter one from a level and notice the immediate difference. I guess it shows how far you've really come. Now, this is basically it when it comes to the secrets. There are a lot of them, and they are pretty well hidden as well, as I missed out on a majority of them on my first playthrough. This definitely has a lot to do with not only how big the levels are, but the level design itself. The game has a fair share of open areas and more linear corridor areas, but I do think the game has a fair balance between these sections, as the bigger area serves more as the combat section, while the stuff in between the combat serves as the linear parts of the game. But there are rare occasions where you'll have to do some platforming, like in the Argent Tower level. I do not like doing these platform sections in the game, especially on this level. You have no air mobility and jumps can be too stiff and slippery, leading to potential death. Besides that though, the level design is fairly solid, with a lot of opportunities to move around, find some well-hidden secrets, and properly progress through the game without feeling lost. Even with the keycards returning, the game is still linear in between the bigger areas. Honestly, I feel like the level design is one of the best in the series next to Doom 64, except this game doesn't have dumb puzzle segments like Doom 64. Now, the levels aesthetically are also pretty good. The game looks beautiful at certain moments, and it really sells you that demonic invasion type of vibe. However, in terms of set pieces, we have yet again only two main ones, which are the Mars/the UAC facilities and Hell. But both look pretty good though. I just wish there was more to the set pieces, as this is like the fifth game that we're using these areas now. So with the level design, combat, enemies, and personality and energy in place, you got yourself a recipe for the best gameplay loop in the series by far. It's such a fun time playing the game, at a comfortable 10 hours on your first playthrough to boot. Now, of course, the game also has a fair share of bosses, so let's talk about those. Now, for some reason, the game throws the first boss at you during the last third of the game. I'm not sure why we were fighting a boss this late, but alright, I guess. So our first boss is the Cyber Demon, who sucks. I literally destroyed him easily. Like, why would you make the Cyber Demon so pathetic? Oh, wait a minute, I think he's getting back up. And, okay, now this is a fight. Overall, this boss is fun to find, is much better than the garbage we got in Doom 3. Just to make sure to look out for his attacks and signals and never stop moving. Next we have this Hell Guardian dude, who is actually fairly challenging at first due to his shield he has, but like the Cyber Demon, he has a second phase where you fight two of them, which can be pretty fun. Another great and decently challenging fight. Now the final boss, like the first game, is a Spider Mastermind, aka Olivia Pierce. This fight is great. She's fairly difficult and has a huge range of attacks you need to look out for, and the final blow you deal on her is just awesome. Overall, the bosses are all great in this game. They provide a decent challenge that tests your overall understanding of the game's movement and mechanics while also being pretty engaging. Nice job, ID Software, you guys actually made some pretty decent boss fights this time, which when I think about it, you can't say a lot about throughout the series. And hey, the music during these fights are also pretty great. Oh, the music! I forgot about the music. How could I? I'm just gonna flat out say it. This soundtrack is incredible. Composed by the absolute gigachad that is Mick Gordon, the soundtrack goes for a very unique metal rocking style. What I find very strange, however, is that for some reason, when Mick Gordon was tasked on doing the OST, ID Software specifically told him not to use guitars in their soundtrack because they believed that heavy metal had become, and I quote, a bit of a joke. What? What does that even mean? I am probably missing something, but case in point, it was very strange that he wasn't allowed to use guitars in this game, although that would slowly change over time. But what did Mick Gordon do to achieve such a glorious sounding OST? I'm not going to get too technical here, but it is genuinely pretty interesting, so I am going to link the video Understanding the Music of Doom by Liam Triforce in the description, since it goes a lot more in depth about it. Anywho, working his magic, he curated the soundtrack which resulted in one of the most unique sounding OSTs I have ever heard. You seriously would never hear this anywhere else. And the greatest example of what this soundtrack offers is the song BFG Division. Take a listen. Absolutely incredible, man. Songs like this are all over the soundtrack, along with some slower, more atmospheric stuff for things in between the combat. I'll highlight a few more notable ones like Rip and Tear. And one of my personal favorites that features a heavy choir sounding theme during combat sections during the hell levels called Damnation. Hell, there's even a song that uses an actual chainsaw. Yeah, you heard me, a chainsaw. This is included in the song Hellwalker, and you will immediately hear it once I play it. What an absolute mad lad Mick Gordon is. So with the music in mind, this further escalates the already bursting energy this game offers and really brings it to the next level. This is a great example of a soundtrack amplifying the gameplay and how you approach situations. Every combat scenario is blood pumping, adrenaline-inducing action, and the music really helps sell that energy. If your music can help invoke something within the player, then you have done something amazing. And I hope Mick Gordon knows that. Incredible work. Well, that seems to be all I wanted to talk about. Man, what an incredible game. I can't even begin to... Wait, what is this? Snapmap? I didn't see this here. Let me see. Wait, what? Create? Maps? Wait a minute. No, they didn't. This game has a level creation, and you can share maps and play other people's maps too? I didn't know this game had this. This is incredible. Now, this was literally my reaction when I found this out, and I had no clue when I first played the game that this even existed. But it's genuinely really cool. You can make a lot of cool stuff with this. There are a whole range of custom maps to play either alone or with friends. The level creation definitely has a lot of potential here, and I can't wait to see what to do with it in the next game. Overall, a really good component to the game, so I felt like I just needed to mention it here real quick. Doom 2016 is the perfect reboot to a franchise that has been gone for quite some time. It incorporates everything great about the original Doom games while also innovating and doing its own thing. Combined with a game that is just oozing with that aggressive-like energy and really making it known that this game is really something else, and not in the sea of mediocre garbage that FPS games have been swimming in for a while now. It really breathed new life into a dying genre to remind us about what made an FPS game so good in the first place, by perfectly translating the old formula for these games for a newer generation to play. Now, I do think there could be a bit more done to the combat to really flesh it out, but what they started here was great, and with a soundtrack that is absolutely incredible and unique sounding, Doom has returned with its own personality and feel that I think will be known as the game that revitalized the FPS formula in 2016. An easy 9.5 out of 10. I think there could be a little more done here to make it a 10, but it's still an incredibly solid shooter and an incredibly solid game. Must play. Whew, alright, we have reached a home stretch, guys. Now we have one more game left in the marathon. This game is Doom Eternal, and I am very excited to talk about this one. But in the meantime, if you enjoyed it, consider subscribing to the channel. It really means a lot to me. And if this is the first video you've seen from me, check out the rest of my marathon and the other videos I've made. If you want to catch up on my idiotic nature, follow me on Twitter. I also put updates there as well. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the final review in the marathon. Rip and tear.